The air was thick with dust and panic. Mason could barely see through the haze of cement powder swirling around the half-finished building. The workers were screaming, some running toward the scaffolds, others frozen in shock. A man fell from the second floor, landing with a hard thud on the gravel below. His hard hat rolled away, spinning slowly before stopping beside Mason's boots. He didn't even look down at it. His eyes were locked on the thing crawling out of the shadows. It looked like a man, but its body twisted in ways no human could move. Its mouth opened too wide, and its teeth were gray and broken. Blood, dry and dark, painted its chin. Mason took a shaky step backward, his hammer clutched tight in his hand. "Get away from it," shouted Caleb, his supervisor, from somewhere above. But before Mason could move, another figure appeared behind the first one, and another, and another. Within seconds, a group of them, 6 maybe 7, were staggering out of the dark rooms of the uncompleted building. The zombies were everywhere, and Mason realized something that made his stomach twist in fear. They were the same workers who disappeared that morning. Then one of the creatures lunged straight at him, knocking him down hard. The world spun, dust filled his lungs, and he screamed, just as everything went black. It had all started just a few hours earlier. It was a bright Friday morning at the construction site on the edge of a quiet town in Ohio. Mason, a 26-year-old carpenter, wiped sweat off his forehead as he carried a plank of wood toward the new office block they'd been building for months. The site was huge, half concrete, half steel, surrounded by farmland and trees. Everyone called it the Uncompleted, because no matter how hard they worked, something always delayed the project. Power outages, strange noises at night, tools missing by morning. Still, the workers kept coming because the pay was good and Friday meant Workers' Day, a small celebration where they got free food and drinks after lunch. Caleb, their tall, gruff supervisor, stood near the cement mixer yelling instructions. "Mason, once you finish up, go help Randy with the basement foundation," he said, his hearing water dripping again. "Got it," Mason said, adjusting his gloves. The water sound had been strange, like something moving down there when no one was supposed to be. But Mason wasn't one to believe in spooky stories. Down in the basement, the air felt colder. It always did. Randy was there, crouched near the wall, flashlight shaking slightly. "You hear that?" he asked. Mason listened. Tap, tap, tap. Something was dripping slowly, but it didn't sound like water. More like something wet being dragged. He forced a laugh. Probably a leak. But when he shined his flashlight toward the far corner, he saw muddy footprints, bare feet, not boots. "Who's down here?" Mason called out. No answer. Randy's voice trembled. "Let's go back upstairs, man." They climbed halfway up the stairs when something clattered behind them, a pipe rolling across the floor. Mason turned, shining the light again, but this time the footprints were gone. By lunchtime, everyone was eating under a large tent near the gate. The mood was light, music playing from a small speaker. Nobody mentioned the basement. Not yet. Then a man ran up from the far side of the site, waving his arms. It was Tony, one of the electricians. His face was pale, his shirt ripped. "Caleb," he yelled, panting. "There's something wrong inside. I saw someone moving in the storage room. They looked dead." The laughter stopped. Caleb frowned. "Dead? You mean injured?" "No," Tony stammered. "Dead, but moving." Everyone froze. Then a sound echoed from the building, a low moan, followed by a loud crash. Tools fell over. The workers stared at each other. Mason's heart pounded as he picked up his hammer again. What was that? Before anyone could answer, a figure stumbled out through the dusty doorway of the uncompleted structure. Its clothes were torn, its eyes pale white. It opened its mouth and let out a sound that wasn't human. Caleb shouted, "Back up. Everyone back up." More figures appeared behind it, arms stretched out, walking unsteady but fast. The music stopped. The laughter turned into screams. Workers ran in every direction as the creatures charged out into the open air, their gray hands reaching for anything that moved. Mason stood frozen, watching one of them grab a man by the arm and pull him to the ground. Then one turned its head toward him. Their eyes met, and that's when it sprinted. Straight for him. Mason's legs moved before his mind caught up. He sprinted across the dusty ground, dodging piles of bricks and metal rods. Behind him, the sound of heavy footsteps and animal-like growls grew louder. He could hear the creatures breathing, ragged and wet, like broken engines. "Run to the trucks," Caleb shouted from somewhere near the tent. The workers scattered in every direction, but the uncompleted building was surrounded by fences. The only open gate was jammed with panicking people trying to squeeze through. Mason looked back and saw one of the zombies leap over a pile of wood and land on top of another worker. The man screamed once, then went silent. He ducked behind a cement mixer, heart hammering in his chest. He tried to steady his breath, but his hands wouldn't stop shaking. He peered out slowly. The creatures were everywhere now, moving through the site like wild animals, sniffing, jerking, and grabbing anyone still moving. Mason. He turned and saw Sarah, the youngest worker on the team, running toward him. Her face was pale, her hair covered in dust. "They got Caleb," she cried. He tried to stop one, but he's gone. Mason grabbed her wrist. "We have to get to the office shack. It locks from the inside." They ran together through the chaos, passing a fallen crane cable and a wheelbarrow tipped over with cement spilling out. A loud thud shook the ground. Something had crashed into the upper floors. Dust rained down like gray snow. When they reached the office shack, Mason slammed the door shut and twisted the lock. They both fell to the floor, panting hard. Outside, they could still hear the screams fading, replaced by the slow dragging of feet and the eerie moaning of the undead. For a moment, everything went quiet. Sarah sat up slowly. How can this be real?" she whispered. "I saw Mark this morning. He was alive. Now he tried to bite me." Mason shook his head. "I don't know what this is. Maybe some kind of infection." He looked through the small window. "We need to find a way out before they surround the site completely." But as he looked out, his stomach sank. There were at least 20 of them now, wandering between the trucks and scaffolds, bumping into walls, growling softly. The whole site looked like a nightmare come alive. Suddenly, a loud bang hit the shack door. Mason jumped. Sarah covered her mouth to stop from screaming. The banging came again, harder this time. Something was outside, trying to break in. "Hold the desk," Mason whispered. Together, they pushed the heavy wooden desk in front of the door. The sound of splintering would fill the air. The creature slammed again, the metal frame shaking. Then, silence. Sarah's eyes darted to the window. A pale face appeared there, pressed against the glass. Its skin was cracked, lips torn, teeth gray. It stared right at her. She screamed, and Mason swung the hammer he'd kept from earlier, shattering the glass. The zombie's hand shot through the opening, claws scraping at the desk. Mason hit it again, and it pulled away, howling. Sarah was crying now. "We can't stay here. What if more come?" He nodded. "We'll make a run for the generator room. There's a door to the other side of the fence behind it." They gathered what they could, 2 metal rods, a flashlight, and a first aid box, and unblocked the back door. Mason peeked out. The yard was quiet except for the wind rustling plastic sheets hanging from scaffolds. "Stay close," he whispered. They crept past a half-built wall and crouched near the cement bags. Mason scanned the area, clear for now. The generator building was just 20 feet away. Then came a sound that made both of them freeze, a faint whispering noise. It wasn't a growl or a moan. It sounded human. "Mason." He turned sharply. It was Caleb. His shirt was torn, one sleeve soaked with blood. He was limping toward them from behind a pile of bricks. "Caleb." Sarah cried and ran toward him, but Mason grabbed her arm. "Wait." Caleb looked wrong. His eyes were dull, his movements jerky. He tilted his head and smiled in a strange, broken way. "You can't leave yet," he said softly. Then his jaw cracked sideways, and he lunged. Mason shoved Sarah behind him, swinging the metal rod with all his strength. Caleb crashed to the ground but didn't stop moving. Mason hit him again until he went still. Sarah was sobbing. "That was Caleb. He was our boss." Mason's voice was shaking. "Not anymore." They reached the generator room, slammed the door shut, and locked it. The lights inside flickered weakly, the hum of machinery echoing like a heartbeat. Mason leaned against the wall, catching his breath. "We'll rest for a few minutes," he said. "Then we'll find a way out." But as soon as he said it, a deep, metallic groan echoed through the room. The lights dimmed. The generator whined, and then stopped. The room went dark, and in that darkness came the sound of something breathing. Slow, heavy, right behind them. Mason froze. The sound of breathing grew louder, slow, wet, and too close. He could feel Sarah trembling beside him, her hand gripping his arm tightly. The room was pitch black now. The only light came from the faint glow of the moon through a tiny vent in the wall. He whispered, "Don't move." But then something shuffled in the darkness. a dragging sound, then a low growl. Sarah whimpered. "Mason, it's in here." He moved slowly, reaching for the flashlight on the floor. His hand brushed against something cold and sticky. He forced himself not to flinch, found the flashlight, and clicked it on. The beam of light cut through the dark, landing right on a figure crouched in the corner. It was another worker, or what used to be one. Its skin looked gray, covered in dirt and scratches, mouth hanging open. Its eyes rolled white when the light hit them. Then it screamed and charged. Mason swung the metal rod as hard as he could, catching it across the face. The creature stumbled but didn't stop. It slammed into him, knocking the flashlight away. The beam spun wildly across the floor, flashing against the walls and machinery. "Run, Sarah," he yelled. She bolted for the back of the room, fumbling for the small door that led to the fence. Mason struggled with the creature, kicking and shoving. He could smell the rot on its breath. With one last swing, he hit it square on the head, and it fell still. Panting, he stumbled towards Sarah. She had managed to open the back door halfway, but something was blocking it from outside. She looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. It stuck. Mason pushed with all his strength. The door groaned, then gave way. They slipped through into the open air, gasping. Outside, the night was heavy and silent. The whole construction site looked dead. No lights, no sounds of machines, only shadows and faint smoke drifting from broken lamps. They followed the fence line, staying low. Every few steps, Mason stopped to listen. Somewhere far off, a scream echoed through the night, then faded. "Do you think anyone's left?" Sarah whispered. "I don't know," Mason said. "But we have to find a way out of here before they spread beyond the site." As they turned a corner, they spotted something. Headlights. A truck was parked near the loading bay, engine still running, one door open. Hope flickered in their eyes. "Come on," Mason said. They ran across the open yard, dodging debris and overturned barrels. The truck's headlights cut through the fog, lighting up the skeletal frame of the uncompleted building. For a moment, it almost looked normal again, just another worksite in the dark. But then movement caught Mason's eye. Up on the second floor, dozens of silhouettes stood motionless, lined along the edges like statues. One by one, their heads turned toward the truck. "Oh no," Mason whispered. "They see us." The first one jumped, then another. Soon, they were falling from the upper floors, hitting the ground hard but getting right back up, limping toward them fast. "Go! Go!" Mason shouted. They reached the truck. Mason shoved Sarah inside and ran around to the driver's side. He jumped in, turned the key, and the engine sputtered. Once. Twice. Nothing. "Come on," he yelled, slamming the steering wheel. The creatures were closing in, their pale faces lit by the headlights. Sarah screamed, "They're coming." The engine finally roared to life. Mason slammed his foot on the gas. The truck lurched forward, tires spinning in the dirt. The first few zombies smashed against the side, leaving bloody handprints on the windows. Mason didn't look back. He drove straight through the half-open gate, crashing it down. They sped down the empty road, breathing hard, eyes wide with disbelief. The site disappeared behind them, swallowed by darkness. For a few minutes, neither of them spoke. The road stretched out endlessly ahead, lined with trees and flickering streetlights. Then Sarah asked quietly, "Do you think it's just the site?" "Oh." Mason didn't answer. His eyes caught something up ahead. A car stopped in the middle of the road, doors open. The windshield was cracked, and the driver's seat was empty. He slowed down, frowning. "Stay in the truck," he said. But before he could even open the door, something moved in the bushes beside the road. A face appeared in the glow of the headlights. Gray skin, hollow eyes, then another face, and another. "Oh no," Sarah whispered. They weren't alone. The road ahead was filled with them, dozens, maybe hundreds, standing perfectly still, blocking the way. Mason gripped the wheel. "Hold on." He hit the gas again. The truck roared forward, the creatures turning their heads slowly toward the sound. Some began to move, staggering into the road. As the headlights hit their faces, Mason realized they weren't just from the construction site. They were people, farmers, drivers, townsfolk. The infection had already spread. Sarah gasped, covering her mouth. "The whole town." Mason's eyes widened in horror. "It's not just the building anymore." The truck plowed through the first wave of infected, but there were too many. They surrounded the vehicle, pounding on the glass, crawling onto the hood. Sarah screamed as one broke through the window, grabbing at her arm. Mason swung the metal rod, shouting, "Get off her!" The truck swerved, crashing into a road barrier. The world tilted sideways. The glass shattered. Then, silence. Smoke filled the air. Mason opened his eyes, dazed. He turned to Sarah. She was still breathing but unconscious. Outside, shadows moved closer. Dozens of them. Maybe more. Mason reached for her hand. "I won't let them take you." He looked around desperately and saw something glinting nearby. A flashlight. A sign half buried in dirt. It read, "Welcome to Lexington, population 340,000. And from the hills beyond, faint lights flickered in the distance. Screams echoed. The infection had spread to the next city. Mason looked at Sarah and whispered, "It's starting all over again."